Now, I didn't know this until recently checking my credit card statement and boom, 78 bucks at Cabo Dolphins VAT. I've never been a Cabo. Somebody had assumed my identity and become me. Besides violating my sense of financial trust and well-being, it led me down a deep rabbit hole in an attempt to answer this question. How can I better protect myself against identity theft, and do any of the services out there that purport to do so, are they even worth it? Or are they just variations of the age-old business model, the protection racket, in which the same companies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, that purport to protect our personal data, actually mishandle it while peddling the protection services to the same customers whose data they haven't protected in the first place? I was about to find out. Join me as I journey from small-town Mexico, where my credit card was skimmed in the first place, to the illicit marketplaces of the dark web, and finally through the world of identity theft protection services. Along the way, I'll share everything I've learned as a privacy-obsessed consumer, including 6 things that you can do right now today for free without needing to buy any service that can massively improve your data hygiene and reduce your risk of identity theft. Like all great stories, this one begins with sunscreen. 3 ounces of pure SPF 50 sunscreen, the best that a pasty white guy like me could get while down in Mexico. Paradise until day 2 of our retreat found me scrambling to buy aloe vera and sunscreen because I forgot that I am, in fact, a pasty white dude of European descent, and my skin does not like the sun. Now, I didn't think twice when swiping my card at the pharmacy to pick up the sunscreen, but in hindsight, I wish I would have. That's because when buying the sunscreen, my credit card was skimmed. If you are unfamiliar with skimming, you should know that it is one of the most common types of fraud out there. The way it works is simple. You place your card in a terminal at a merchant's location, grocery store, pharmacy, movie theater, wherever, and unbeknownst to you, that merchant has actually inserted a device that copies all of your card details and saves them for later use. And that's when, if you're like me, you end up with a $78 charge for Cabo Dolphins VAT. This was not a negligible charge, but it was definitely small enough that I could see how I could have overlooked it. So I began to wonder, what does $78 buy one at Cabo Dolphins VAT? I began to vividly imagine the thieves who had stolen my credit card data happily swimming with dolphins, eating burgers, drinking margaritas, all on my dime. Or perhaps Cabo Dolphins VAT doesn't even exist. It might well be a fictional business designed purely to capitalize on the skimmed information of dupes like me. It was time for me to hit the dark web to learn more. Here's the question that I really wanted to answer. Just how easy is it to obtain stolen credit card information? Turns out it's pretty damn easy. You just got to hit a place known as the dark web. So this image here, this describes what the dark web is better than I can. Without getting too technical, you just need to know that anything that is not indexable by search engines is the deep web, and the dark web is a subset of the deep web where most of the criminal activity on the internet occurs. My question was really, how quickly could I purchase stolen credit card information on the dark web? And it turns out that I was able to find it in literally 2 minutes. So you can see here the sheer amount of illegal financial services offered on the dark web. You can buy PayPal accounts with balances, you can buy gift cards that were purchased with stolen money, and of course you can buy the credit card information of thousands of people. Lucky for you and me, there are a few steps that we can take to prevent our information from ever ending up on one of these websites, and I'm going to share those with you right now. So the first thing that you can do is place fraud alerts at the big 4 credit bureaus. Those bureaus are Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and the 4th, sometimes overlooked, major credit bureau, Innovis. So essentially, placing a fraud alert with each of these 4 bureaus will require that any creditors verify your identity before processing credit card applications. Admittedly, this is sort of an annoying option because you do have to renew it manually every 90 days. So the next and more thorough step is to freeze your credit entirely at the 4 credit bureaus. I've got links in the video description below where you can go directly and do so. So by planting your flag, what you're doing is signing up for accounts at Experian, Equifax, Innovis, and TransUnion, and you're doing this proactively before fraudsters and identity thieves do it for you. A word of warning, if you do decide to freeze your credit files, which is probably going to be the right decision for most people watching this, you do have to unlock them if you're applying for a new credit card or a home loan mortgage or anything like that. All right, the next step that you should be doing, regardless of whether you go with an identity theft protection service or not, is you want to be using a strong encrypted password manager. Personally, I use LastPass, but there's Dashlane, there's 1Password, there are a bunch of offers on the market, and I'll link to them in the video description below. Now, the next thing you need to do if you're serious about preventing identity theft is you need to set up two-factor authentication. The best, most secure form of 2FA, in my opinion, is using something like Authy, which again, I'm gonna link in the video description below, to verify login attempts. I vastly prefer using a service like Authy, which is free by the way, or a Google Authenticator, to text message verification, because with text message verification, if a hacker is to gain control of your SIM card or your phone, which does happen quite frequently, then they can essentially intercept any 2FA messages sent. Whereas with Authy or Google Authenticator, they would not be able to do that. Now for 2FA, I've used both Google Authenticator as well as Authy. I prefer Authy because you can move it easily from phone to phone, whereas with Google Authenticator, you can't. So another very simple step you can take is use a credit card, don't use a debit card when making in-store purchases, assuming that you have access to credit. And finally, do consider signing up for an identity theft protection service like Aura. Now, the nice thing about these tips that I just gave you is they can all be done free of charge, except for this last one, signing up for a service, which is what I'm going to be talking about now. So if you're watching this video, you are probably familiar with some of the services out there, whether it's Aura, LifeLock, Identity Guard, etc. And you're gonna see a ton of features and benefits offered, right? $1 million insurance policy, VPNs, antivirus software, etc. The way I wanna tackle this portion of the video is by quickly going through feature by feature and explaining which ones you need and which ones you actually don't. I would not go with an identity theft protection service in order to get a password manager. Instead, I would use one of the many low-cost or free alternatives out there: LastPass, OnePass, Dashlane, Bitwarden. There are a lot, and I would use those to manage my passwords instead. These password managers tend to be a lot more robust than the ones developed by identity theft protection services. The next feature that you can skip is annual credit monitoring. You can actually get this for free at annualcreditreport.com, link in the video description below, so you don't need to pay anybody for this information. The next feature that you don't need to pay for with any of these services is a freeze at the big 4 credit bureaus. I've already talked about these a little bit. These are Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and Innovis, and you can freeze your credit with them for free. The next service that is just kind of a meh from an identity theft protection service is the VPNs that they offer. VPNs are technically complex products, and as a VPN user myself, I want to go with a company that is constantly innovating and updating their VPN for the many reasons that people use them. And I think from what I've seen, at least, the VPNs offered by these identity theft protection services, they're super basic. So if you're not using a VPN at all and you want a slight additional layer of protection, then yeah, you could go ahead and sign up for one of these services and use the VPN that, say, Aura offers. But if you're really looking for a VPN that is going to give you high levels of security, I'd probably check out Proton VPN, or if you want a VPN for streaming, I'd check out Surfshark or Nord. And finally, the last feature that I would put in the meh, no thanks category is the antivirus software. So if those are all the reasons that I wouldn't go with an identity theft protection service, why would I actually ever get one? Well, there's actually a pretty long list here. These are the yeses. These are the reasons that you would want to get identity theft protection. So the first reason to go with one of these services is for ID restoration and or this white glove concierge service. So if you're watching this because your identity has just been stolen and you're overwhelmed, and you don't know what to do, I'd sign up for one of these services. Just do it for a month if you want, and then you can cancel after that. But the reality is that having a human on the other end of the phone line who can tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it is really, really useful. And additionally, the people at these companies can be a source of emotional support in a very difficult time. So next we have automated data broker opt-out requests. I really like this feature. Aura offers it. And basically what this is the Aura software will essentially mass email a bunch of data brokers out there and request that they remove your personally identifying information from their websites. Another really useful feature offered by most of these services is going to be dark web alerts. Basically, a dark web alert is what it sounds like. When any of your information turns up on the dark web, you are going to be notified. And the better services are, of course, going to give you more alerts because they're capturing more of these data breaches on the dark web. So this is essentially 24/7 real-time monitoring of any data breaches that involve you and your personal information. Every identity theft protection service on the market offers this. In my experience, Aura is the best at it. I get the highest number of alerts in my name from Aura. So next up, you have public records monitoring, also called home title theft protection. And basically what this is if somebody attempts to change the name on the deed of your home, you would, in theory, be notified. And account record monitoring. This is also a useful feature. Basically, you can link up all your bank accounts with one of these services and set up a a series of triggers so that if a transaction greater than $1,000 occurs, you receive a notification via email and or text message. So the ultimate and sort of annoying conclusion is that you are going to be the best frontline defense against identity theft. You can't outsource this completely to a third party, but you can get some help from a third party service like Aura. And if you want to learn more about what they do, go ahead, watch this video. It's going to play next.